Thank you for staying with us. It is time now to know what's on the front pages of Nigerian newspapers. Journalists Ifi Onyegbile and Dari Udufon are here with me, gentlemen of the press. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. All right, let's head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the Daily Trust. Over 100,000 flee to Niger Republic after Boko Haram attacks Borno town. Over 100,000 flee to Niger Republic after Boko Haram attacks Borno town. 10 more people killed in Damasak, houses burnt. Women, children in distress, legislators. All right, so you find the stories on the pages of the Daily Trust. To the Daily Times now. Powerful forces stop Sanwo-Olu on Amotekun. Powerful forces stop Sanwo-Olu on Amotekun. Details of that story on the pages of the Daily Times. To the blueprint now, illicit financial flow. 10 ex-governors own 13 billion naira properties in UK. Report. Illicit financial flow, 10 ex-governors own 30 billion naira properties in UK. Report. To the News Direct, local content, federal government to sanction violators of expatriate quota rules. Arek Beshola. Details of that story on the pages of the News Direct. Right. To the Business Day now, Nigerian states prioritize salaries over investment. Nigerian states prioritize salaries over investment. Details of that story on the Business Day. To the New Telegraph now, alleged 1.4 billion naira fraud. EFCC arrests ex-Akwa Ibom AG Nwoko. Details of that story on the pages of the Telegraph newspaper. To the Nation now, Fayose, how Southwest PDP Congress poll was rigged. Ex-governor alleges violence, manipulation. Or your PDP, he should accept defeat. To the Punch newspaper, states face cash crunch, salaries swallow revenues, federal government seeks more funds. We need more money for debt servicing, day-to-day running of government, admits federal government. Ekiti spends 93% of allocation on workers, receives 3.1 billion naira on the average, says state. We can't continue spending 90% of our revenue on civil servants, pensioners, Gombe. We'll look at the story shortly. To the Guardian now, avoid reckless money printing to fund deficits. Experts warn. It is untrue we printed 60 billion naira. Federal government replies Obaseki. Seek alternative funding options as country risks falling into hyperinflation. Senate summons Minister AGF over 7.5 billion naira secret withdrawals. All right, we move to the Vanguard now. 60 billion naira printed for March allocation. Obaseki lied. Federal government issue raised by Edo Governor Sart. Not a fact. Finance Minister adds, not true. We printed money to share at FAAC, says Nigeria's debt at sustainable level. Allocation shortages usually augmented from Equalization Fund. Finance Ministry official. To the Daily Sun now, Umahi's bombshell, external forces plotting to cause war in Southeast. Governor exonerates IPOB ESN from attacks on zone. All right, let's look at the story on the front page of the Punch newspaper, talking about how states are facing a cash crunch. You will recall that I think some days ago, Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai says that he can't be spending so much on paying salaries of workers, that is not what his government is about. And so about 4,000 workers were sacked, and there were reactions talking about the labor and coming out to say that he doesn't understand the strength of the civil service and all of that. And he goes to say that the pandemic has shown that we do not need as much workers moving forward. And now we are seeing that some governors are coming out after that, saying that they can't continue spending 90% of their revenue on civil servants, pensioners. Let's get your reaction, and I begin with you, Ifi.
My question will be, why did you take them on in the very first place? Those people have always been there. Some are retiring and all of that. Now you have sacked them or shipped them out as it is. what will they be doing? I don't know if anyone is seeing what it is that I'm saying, that they will also become a burden to the state as it is. But then, this is a governor that is real for me. He says it as it is, and he goes all out to do it as it should be. But we need to understand what plans you have for the people that you have laid off or you've shown the way out. Now, you're talking about not wanting to spend all of the monies that you have or the money that you make your IGR on workers and, of course, the civil service. What are the plans that you have on ground? Of course, everyone understands that with the coronavirus that came upon the world, things have changed. Many people lost their jobs. So what are the alternatives? Those are the things that we need to look at so that we don't dwell so much on this. We have to think up alternatives for these people because as it is, we're going to begin to see suicides. People will begin to do some other things because they have to make ends meet. And I'm not sure that that's what we want to see in that state.
Dari, Ekiti is saying they spend 93% of allocation on workers. Meanwhile, they receive 3.1 billion naira on the average. And they are now saying that they need more money for debt servicing. That's the federal government's day-to-day running of the government and all of it that. Also, Gombe State Governor is saying that they spend 90% of revenue on civil servants and pensioners. And like if he says, how did we get here? That why did you take them up in the first place? I was saying there are times when we come up to say we need to start looking at cutting costs of governance on all of it. Yet we're still having these issues.
Yeah, I'll start by trying to maybe answer that question or correct it. I'll correct the impression that any governor at all is to be blamed for the huge workforce. Talk about the current governors. They inherited the huge workforce. They didn't employ them. They didn't take them on. Over the years, employment took place. Yeah, some retired, others were employed. Some get transferred from one place to the other. We have seen people getting transferred from one state to the other. State civil service, for that matter. Interstate transfers like that. So it won't be fair on any governor to ask him,
why did they take them on in the first place?
He didn't take them on. Largely, I can tell you that very few governors nationwide are employed in the last 5 years. Very few. Trying to create, they keep telling you they will create jobs. But joblessness is everywhere. Because they don't even know where to start from creating the jobs. And we keep telling them, create jobs. That's almost a song. Create jobs, reduce unemployment. We are not asking ourselves that question. When we tell governors to create jobs and reduce, how are we expecting them to do it? Already, the civil service everywhere is overbloated. Lagos governor recently came out to say, if he doesn't have to pay that, the much he's paying, he will do better in providing infrastructure. And I agree with him. For everything El-Rufai said, I agree with him totally. The truth is that politicians over the years used the issue of civil service employment to play politics. Okay, I'm there, let me quickly fix in my people. The average Nigerian worker too, every day adjusts his age. He doesn't want to retire. You go to civil service, you still find people who are originally 72, claiming to be 58, and they are still in service. People are not retiring. And then we are producing more and more graduates every day. Right. They need to get into the system. So even where the governor or the government of a state is not employing, people are finding their way into that system, becoming civil servants. And you have to pay them. So you have a situation where, like, is it in Ekiti, where 90% of the entire federal allocation is spent on
Gombe State, actually.
In Gombe, paying salary. If we continue to tell the governors, don't sack, condone this situation, we are simply telling them, forget about infrastructure.
If they sack, what options do we have for these people?
That's a big question.
we waited for the pandemic to show us the truth that we don't actually need as much people that we have in the civil service. In most states, less than half the workforce have been working for over a year, and none of the state has collapsed. No civil service has collapsed. Work is ongoing. It simply means that 5 people have been doing the work of 20 people in the last 1 year, completely, and things are working smoothly.
Very correct.
No, it's only here we will tell the governors, go back to what it used to be. In other places, they will say, oh, look, this status quo is actually what we need. And if that is the truth, that we actually don't need that much. My own take is that other workers who are yet to be sacked should take a cue and start thinking of what else they can do. You see, when it comes to public service, we are always very emotional. Do you know how many private sector people lost their job? In all sectors. Nationwide. The private sector went downsizing largely. And I've not heard anybody saying, what are you going to do for those people who are sacked in the private sector? They are also Nigerians. So if the reality of today is that we don't need the much people we have in the civil service, why we keep telling the governor, also think of alternatives for them? Let's tell ourselves as Nigerians, the issue of startups should concern us more now. Even if you still have your job. Do we have
the enabling environment that we encourage?
Government will provide that enabling environment. Then when they have more money to do it, when they pay less wages, when they spend less amount, less percentage of what they have to pay civil service, civil servants. We want them to provide the enabling environment from what they get. 90% has been spent on civil paying workers. And then we keep sometimes we are actually not fair. Though politicians themselves are not somebody you should hold stead for. But sometimes we are actually not fair on them. We know the truth. 90% of what he gets goes to paying civil servants. Of course, some of it goes to workers too. He will also pocket his own. We know. But if the reality, the paper is telling us, see how much he's spending, where are we expecting him? Especially in states where we all know that the IGR is next to nothing. Gombe State, Ekiti State. These are not viable states when it comes to IGR. Now he has spent all his money and we want him to provide the enabling environment.
You want to react
so it has to be all of us.
Yes, it's saying the truth. That's it. But I need to also point out, because he probably misunderstood what I was saying when I said, why take them on? Government does not stop with one person.
Absolutely.
When I talk about government, I'm not saying it's the governor who's in office. Of course, the governor inherited the workers as it is. So when I say why take them on, I'm talking about government as it is. Why let the civil service become so bloated, where you have 10 people doing the job of maybe 2 persons? People are largely idle as it is. And you understand that some even just take that jobs, and you find out that they are right there on the payroll. They may not even come to the office. They are busy doing some other thing. So I think the governors that have decided now to say we need to downsize, we need to right size, whatever word they decide to use, it makes a lot of sense. And as Dari has said, people need to begin to think about what it is they need to do outside salaries. Some people ask me a question, how have you lived without receiving salaries? And I say to them, it's the best life there can ever be. You become so creative, you find a need, you meet that need, and you get paid for meeting that need. But many people have, they've gotten so used to, very comfortable in receiving salaries. You get the alerts on your phone by month end, whether you work or not. You know how they say it in the civil service, whether you work or not, your salary will come. So people need to wake up. Coronavirus has actually changed our lives as it is. And some have woken up. They're doing things. Teachers are deciding now to say, look, can I come take your children on private classes? And they get paid for it. So they have to wake up as it is. And government needs to create that enabling environment. If people want to do small businesses, where is the power to do the business, for crying out loud? So these are the things we need to harp on so that government understands the role that it needs to play. I agree, the civil service is such a huge place where you have so many people doing nothing. When it's 3 o'clock, you see them, everyone's rushing to the staff boss to get a seat on that staff bus. What have you done for the day? They cannot look at that day and say, this is what I've achieved for the day. So this is great to me, but they need to think about what it is. What environment are you pushing these people into? That's what we need to think about.
Very, very important. You mentioned something earlier, Dari, talking about internally generated revenue and the viability of states. When you look at the 36 states of the Federation, no state is not blessed, if I may use the word. Every state is blessed with one form of mineral or the other when it comes to harnessing the potential of a state. And then the question some have asked is, if the reverse was the other way, where states have to, you know, putting monies to the center, would we be facing what we are facing now?
No.
Is this because they go, as it is often said, they go cap in hand to collect
it's even
money?
plate in hand now.
Okay.
They go plate in hand to collect from Abuja.
Shouldn't we now begin to look inwards?
No, you see, like I said before, sometimes we are not fair on these governors. Each state, according to you, is blessed with mineral. But they can't assess it. They can't control it. The current constitutional...
is a very major challenge.
The current construction of our constitution is an impediment to what state governors can do with the resources you talk about. For look at except where the states where we have illegal mining, states are debarred from assessing these things.
The federal government shouldn't the federal government start looking
when
at
when the federal government address that, then we can begin to ask states questions. For today, as of today, the only question we can ask the state is that why are you now shoring up your internal generated revenue in the area of taxing the people? That's it. When you say grow your IGR to any state, you're asking them to tax the people more. And then
who have been sacked?
Who are jobless.
Right.
Farmers who cannot go to their farm because the roads are bad. Traders who spend more on transportation to get their goods. So you would realize that more of what we say are actually rhetorics. We have not sat down to really look at the realities of our expectation from these people. We need to look at restructuring. If we restructure and we say, look, you want to be a state. Do you realize that up till now we still have agitation for state creations? When we are saying some states are not viable. Some sections of some states are saying, give us a state. And it's easy. You want to be a state, you will bring 40% or so to the center. If you can, then you are viable. If we restructure the way we should and we use that approach, I tell you, I see some states merging to say, come. Without anybody forcing them, they will merge and say, you take the name, let me take the capital. Because you realize that we have states where things are only happening in the capital.
Right.
One of the bases for state creation is to develop all parts of that state faster. But go to some of these so-called states, the moment you leave the capital city, that's the end of that state. There are some states that has just one third road, straight third road in some town. Just one street states. And then we still expect miracles to happen, that they keep paying salary. There are states, it's just that Nigerians, we are funny. You are working in a state for a state government that has not paid you for 11 years. And the labor union in that state is keeping quiet because the governor said, look, you make noise, we will have no choice other than to sack. We will retrench. And then they keep quiet. They collect this month, they don't collect for the next 4 months.
And they keep working.
And they keep working. Because they're actually not working.
They're doing other
You won't do
things.
that in the private sector.
Right.
Where they're actually working. Because
No, Derek, some people do it in the private sector. We don't need to go there right now.
and they
We
keep
don't
working.
need to go there.
The truth of the matter is that those people too are actually not working.
No, let
I
us
will keep
go there.
working if
They
you don't pay.
are
Will you?
working.
I
They
will not.
are
Will
working.
you keep working if you are not paid?
I would
The
not.
truth is that those people are actually also not working.
No, Derek, they are working.
They are not.
But there are organizations who give you an appointment letter or maybe a letter
And an
to
ID
say,
card.
and they give you an ID card and say,
Yes.
look, this is your meal ticket. They
And
don't-
you agree?
I wouldn't do such a job. I left paid employment since 2012.
Don't say they are
They are
not paid.
those
There are
They
people
be
who will
paid.
agree.
They agree to the
Yes,
tax.
because
And so
they do
are
other
paid.
things. But
then
don't say they
paid.
don't work. Don't say they don't work. They do their
You
jobs.
shouldn't have said they are not being paid.
No, they're not being paid.
They are being paid. When
They
they say
are
take
not.
ID card and take your card, that's
your
what
ticket.
No,
you
but-
agreed.
No, listen to me.
They
We're saying
paid.
the same thing.
Right.
We are not.
These people are doing their jobs. They
Yes.
don't get any monetary.
But they agreed that by doing their job, they are okay.
Can I say something here?
Right.
I think we need to also, it's another kettle of fish,
Yes.
where we have to look at organizations where they do not pay salaries. They
Yes.
just give you that. They've given you the room to say, get out there and
make
make the money yourself.
And you agree.
We're still saying the same
We are
thing.
not saying the same thing. The
We're
moment
saying
you
the same
agree, you
thing.
are paid.
We're
Right.
saying the same thing.
No, we are not.
Many of them do not even make up to it. But because,
why are they staying?
listen, because they don't want to just sit
They don't
at
want to be
home.
idle.
They don't want to be idle.
Then they agree that what they are
Don't be like
making
the
is
ostrich that
enough
hides
for them.
his head in the sand, okay? They don't want to be idle.
So
That's
if
why
we-
they took up that
no,
job
no.
as
If
it is.
Sometimes
You don't have to agree with me.
Sometimes we create those
You don't have to
problems.
agree with
If you
me.
don't agree to such times and nobody does, that organization will be forced to pay. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
If we don't agree to such silly times, no matter what you expect me to make outside, I'm working for you. You pay me something at the
Larry,
end of the
don't
month.
pretend like you don't know some people work.
no, he's
work,
not
I
work,
saying
do,
he
and
doesn't
but I'm
don't
get
telling you
get
that
it.
But
those
he's
people
just
are the
saying-
problems, not the organizations.
Do you
Why should you
understand?
agree?
Okay,
Okay.
I agree that
You are the problem. Why should you agree to
are
such
great.
times?
Right.
But
We need
let's
to
not
move
say that it
forward
doesn't
now.
exist.
I don't. If it exists, then you are the one creating it because you agree to such terms.
All right.
it.
Before we go, I want us to quickly look at this story on the front page of the Daily Trust. Quickly. Over 100,000 flee to Niger Republic after Boko Haram attacks on Borno town. This is quite a sad development, Ife. I wonder what you make of this.
Sad. You've just said the word, and I wouldn't beg it as it is. It's quite sad that people have to run away from a place like Nigeria, and this is exactly where it is that they're going. Will their lives be better there? Now they're going to add to the problems of that country, whether you like it or not. It's like people from neighboring countries pouring into Nigeria because there's trouble in their country. So there's so much happening in Nigeria. We need to sit down and get our hands together.
Address these security issues.
Yes, we do.
Tackle it head on, Derek.
Yeah, well, 100,000 going into Nigeria. Not long ago, some Nigerians had to run into Benin Republic. And sometimes ago, we had news that Cameroon claims that there are Nigerian refugees. Note the word, refugees. Nigerian refugees. Giants of Africa, we keep calling ourselves that.
Are we
now
still
we
there?
have, these are yardstick to now find out. We now have Nigerians leaving their homes, becoming homeless in another land. The issue, you see, we asked for a change in the service chiefs. We got it. I said it here that nothing will change.
Yeah.
I'm repeating Ife and my sister here. Nothing has changed. If anything, don't you think this thing is getting worse?
It is. I agree.
Is this the trend? Should this be the trend? Is this how we watch Nigeria explode into internal strife? Because what I see is we are already short of a civil war or civil wars now, because we are fighting wars on many fronts.
Yes.
Look at the East. The governor said we have formed the name again,
Ebubagu.
Ebubagu. Somebody said, if you join Ebubagu, we will be prepared to meet your ancestor. Governors, constituted authority, said this is what we want to do to tackle insecurity. Somebody somewhere is saying, you go and join that Ebubagu, and then just prepare to meet your ancestor. That's internal strife. That's civil war. We now have people fleeing Borno into Niger. We have people fleeing Ogun State into Benin Republic. Crisis everywhere. And then we have the government that is supposed to, as the case may be, provide security.
Of
And we are
life
still
and
waiting for Tucanos that we used to fight Boko Haram. Those fighter jets are yet to arrive. I don't know since when. Even former President Goodluck Jonathan talked about the awaited messiahs in the name of Tucanos. We're still waiting. We need to take the bull by the horn and tell ourselves that, look, we are at war. And when you're at war, you don't handle it with kid's glove.
Right.
You confront it headlong. This thing is, what I see happening is, it started in the Northeast. The government approached it with kid's glove. Some people got encouraged in the Northwest. And we are still looking at it that way. Some people got encouraged in the Southeast. Now in the Southwest, we now have people we call Yoruba freedom fighters. We in the media, we know how to create appellations for people. Now there are people who now go by the name Yoruba freedom fight. Which freedom are they fighting for in Yoruba then?
They want to be a Yoruba nation. That's what they have been saying.
So they are now freedom fighters.
We can only hope that the government tackles this headlong, as you mentioned, Dario Dufooko. Ifeanyi Igbile, thank you so much for your time on the program.
Thank you for having us.